Hello, welcome to the Straight Evolutions Only Hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Platinum. In this run, I'll only use the Pokémon that can evolve by trading, now shown on screen. Unfortunately, some Pokémon here are only obtainable after getting the National Dex, so we have to cross them off the list. These are my possible encounters for this run, meaning I most likely wouldn't be able to use any water types. Let's get the rules out of the way. Number 1, any Pokémon that faints must be permaboxed. Number 2, I can only catch the first relevant Pokémon encountered in each area. Number 3, no items during battles. Number 4, no overleveling. And number 5, I have to set the battle mode to set. I will be free to choose the starter, since they will be discarded soon after. For this run, I've applied the universal randomizer on the game file and changed the impossible evolutions, meaning the Pokémon caught and used in this video will be able to achieve their full potential and evolve to their final forms. Now, I hear you asking, will that make the game easier or too easy? Well, keep watching to find out. Before we start though, apparently 90.6% of you who are watching my videos aren't subscribed. I'll be putting out more contents like this, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. Or you can leave a comment and leave a like too, since they help out with the algorithm as well. Now that that's over with, let's get on with the video. Being the fool that we are, we woke up one day and decided to leave home. We tried to cheese it through the nearby grass patch to Professor Rowan's lab, but we were stopped by the professor himself and were put in our place. I enlisted the help of a Piplup to start the game off and battled Barry, where his Turtwig got pounded to death by a tiny penguin. We then found a strange blue spaceman, muttering some space stuff to himself. Once we got to Professor Rowan's lab again, we finally get the chance to give a nickname to our hired help. We said our goodbyes to our mom and left on a grand journey to catch the Pokemon in this list. No Sinnoh journey is complete without completing the Poketch quiz, so we reluctantly finished them and got the Poketch for free. After, we were able to finish a rival battle, though it did take a while to finish. There's only so much a Piplup can do. After, our challenge officially began. East of Jubilife City, we ran around for a while and finally encountered an Abra. We caught the Abra and named him Mystico. At Orberg Gate, we ran around some more and met a Geodude, who was successfully caught as well. She was named Rocco. North of Orberg, another member to the party was caught, Chopo the Machop. And after we called Rourke back to the gym, we caught an Onix down at the mine, who would be called Sinnoh. After a short grinding session, we braved the gym challenge for the first time. I led Chopo as Rourke led Geodude. Chopo hit first with a Karate Chop, which took his foe's health down to orange. In this turn, the Geodude set up a Stealth Rock. After it healed with a potion, Chopo would then blast 2 more Karate Chops and took the Geodude down. Next, Rourke sent out his Cranidos, who was able to hit first with a Headbutt. It took a nice chunk of damage, but 1 Karate Chop from Chopo took it down in one go. Last was Rourke's Onix. The Onix missed his Rock Throw, thankfully, and Chopo easily took it down with a Low Kick. We got the Coal Badge and we ventured on to catch more trade Pokemon. As we were about to exit to the north of Jubilife City, we found Dawn and Professor Rowan in trouble. So Rocco participated in a pretty easy battle against some Team Galactic grunts, and this creeper gave us a fashion case for no apparent reason. After a long and painful grind, Mystica was finally able to evolve into a Kadabra. We got to Flowerama Town and did the usual Valley Windworks errand. We beat up some Galactic grunts and finally got the chance to face our first Galactic commander, Redhead. The Redhead led Zubat, so I opted for the easy counter, Mystico. Mystico outsped the Zubat and took it out with 1 confusion. Redhead sent out her Ugly next, so I switched to Chopo. Chopo got hit with a Fake Out in the switch-in and it did a nice chunk. The Ugly hit back with a Scratch and took down Chopo's health to orange, and Chopo hit back with a Low Kick. The Ugly healed with a Berry, so I switched to Rocco. This oversized cat tried to hit back with feint attacks, but 1 Rock Throw and Magnitude later, it was dead. I did take a risk with that last Magnitude, but it ended well, I suppose. After escorting Cheryl out of the forest, we went back in to catch a Ghastly, who would be named Ghosto. Time for Ginger, the second gym leader. Ginger led a Turtwig, and out of my team who are mostly weak to grass types, I chose Mystico. Mystico did a nice chunk of damage with Confusion in the first turn, and the Turtwig wasted its turn with a Reflect. 1 Confusion later, it got taken down. Ginger's Sherm came out next, and it was taken out with 2 Confusions as well. Finally, the Roserade came out. I was hoping that Mystico's Confusion would be enough to take it out in one go, but it held on in the red and healed with a Berry. It also paralyzed Mystico with a Stun Spore, meaning Mystico would move last in the next turn. The Roserade hit a Grass Knot, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Thankfully, Mystico fought through the paralysis and ended the fight right then and there. We got the second badge and left Ginger for good. Near the Galactic HQ, we met Cynthia for the first time, and she gave us our first HM. I had no one that could use Cut, so I caught a Badoo. While grinding, Rocco evolved into a bigger rock, a Graveler. We needed to save the bike guy from Team Galactic, so we battled Commander Purple Lady at the Galactic Eterna HQ. Purple Lady sent out her Zubat first, so I let Rocco. Rocco was able to hit first and down the Zubat with a rock throw. Her Skuntank was next, so I went for a Magnitude, which missed because of the smoke screen. The Skuntank hit with a Night Slash next, which took more than half of Rocco's HP. Luckily, Rocco rolled a high magnitude roll and one shot at the Skuntank. Honestly, I've been quite lucky so far in this run. We met Cynthia again, who gave us an egg that's going to hatch into an egg. I wouldn't need it, so the egg was boxed. Lo and behold, Blue Spaceman. In Hearthome, we had a rather awkward encounter with our mother, and called Fantina over and told her to stop slacking. We'll see you at the gym, French lady. Not long after, Ghosto evolved into a Haunter. Against the French lady, we faced an absolute nightmare of a battle. None of my team had any useful moves and types against her. My rock types had horrible special defense, Ghosto the Haunter gets outsped and one-shotted by the Mismagius, and Mystico can only fire off one attack before being decimated by a Shadow Ball. So I ran into the hurdle that is Big French Lady. I wiped 4 more times after this, so let me welcome you to attempt number 6. French Lady sent out her Duskull first, so I led with Chapo. Chapo started out with Thief and was able to take down more than half of the Duskull's health. The Duskull replied with a Future Sight, then died the next turn to another Thief. French Lady sent out her Haunter next, so I switched to Sinnoh, the Onyx. After being put to sleep, Sinnoh tanked the Future Sight attack and 2 Shadow Claws before being able to set up a Stealth Rock. A couple of turns later, Sinnoh died to more Shadow Claws after damaging the Haunter once with a Rock Throw. Next, I sent out Arcano, the Kadabra. She used a Psybeam, which easily took out the Haunter. Now, time for the run ender, Mismagius. The Mismagius took some damage from the Stealth Rock upon release, and Arcano went for her last Psybeam in her life, which hit a critical hit. That was heartbreaking. After wiping 5 times to French Lady, I wanted to cry. The Mismagius healed with a berry and took out Arcano with 1 Shadow Ball. I sent in Rocco the Graveler next and tried for a Rock Blast. Rocco got taken out swiftly with a Magical Leaf. He had no chance. But I noticed something. French Lady wasn't healing her Mismagius, and I knew this was my chance. My last hope, Chapo, was sent out. Chapo was hit by a Confuse Ray upon release and was left confused. Fortunately, she was able to fight through the confusion and hit a much needed Thief, finally taking out the godforsaken Mismagius. Finally. After a day of trying, I was able to move on with the game. I laid Arcano, Rocco, and Sinnoh in the Heaven Box and moved on. As much as I want to celebrate, I have to get through another rival battle before I can progress, so I had to grind with the 2 remaining Pokemon that I had. So, Chapo evolved into a Machoke shortly after. Time for the next berry fight. He led his Staravia, and I decided to send out Chapo first despite her type disadvantage. The Staravia set up a double team and Chapo hit a Revenge, which did a lot of damage. The Staravia used Endeavor next and took Chapo's health to red, but the Vital Throw managed to take it out. Barry's Boazle was next, and I considered switching to Ghosto. But the Boazle was 7 levels lower than Chapo, so I risked going for a Revenge. The Boazle used the Water Gun, and my gamble paid off. Chapo survived with 9 HP and took out the Boazle with Revenge. I switched to Spooko and finished the rest of the battle with Nightshades. We survived the aftershock of French Lady and had our path open to catch more team members. Our next encounter was in the Lost Tower in Route 209, a Duskull. It was named Dusko. Right after, somehow the time magically changed to early morning, and we hunted for a Scyther. After about 15 Pokeballs, we caught one and I named it Sayo. Both Sayo and Dusko are a much needed replenishment to the team. And things were starting to look up again as I visited this man in Veilstone City and got a Porygon, naming it Techno. Next was the fighting gym, led by the Kicking Girl. This gym was quite easy though, due to Sayo's high speed and attack stat. Sayo spammed wing attacks and just tore through the Kicking Girl's team. After Maylene's gym, we helped Dawn yet again with Team Galactic and got the Fly HM. And upon looking at my team, I realized I needed a lot of good moves to build the team, so I did what any sane player would do and gambled. A lot. For hours on end, till the cows came home. The gambling paid off though, and I bought a Thunderbolt TM for Techno. After slapping an upgrade on Techno, it was able to evolve into Porygon 2. I spent hours gambling again, and bought 3 TMs. 1 Thunderbolt and 1 Psychic for Spuko, and 1 Ice Beam. South of Veilstone, we caught another team member, a Rhyhorn. He would be known as Horno. I wanted to do some EV training at this point and realized that I don't have anyone that can fly, so I went out and caught a fly slave, Staravia. And while training, Dusko evolved into a Dusclops. Not long after, Spuko evolved into a Gengar. The team is looking quite good after the disastrous French lady incident. I gambled again for a good chunk and bought another Psychic TM for Techno. With that, we're set and ready to challenge Luchador Men over at Pastoria. But of course, we were interrupted by Barry, yet again. Barry led with his Staravia once more, and I opened with Techno. In this battle, Techno really shined through. Techno took down the Staravia with a Thunderbolt despite the bird's double teams. Next, Techno forced more Thunderbolts, this time taking out Barry's Ponyta. When Barry sent out his Grotle, Techno shot out a Signal Beam that immediately took it down to the red. After getting hit by a Razor Leaf, Techno downed the Grotle with another Signal Beam. The Boazle came last and hit an Aqua Jet, but it was one-shotted by a Thunderbolt. While battling through the Pastoria gym trainers, Chapo evolved into a Machamp. Luchador Man proved to be somewhat of a pushover with his team. As his Gyarados came out, I led Techno once again. Techno was able to one-shot the Gyarados with a Thunderbolt with ease. Luchador Man sent out his Floatzel next, and I stayed with Techno. Next turn, the Floatzel hit a Crunch again, but Techno was able to retaliate, killing it in one go. Then Luchador Man sent out his Quagsire. Techno hit his Psychic, which nicely took down the Quagsire's health to half. Techno was hit by a Mudshot after that, so I didn't want to take any risk and went for a recover in the next turn. Techno recovered most of his HP, and the critical hit Rock Tomb didn't do much. Finally, Techno dished out a Psychic and hit a crit of its own, taking out the mighty Quagsire. After beating the gym, we were notified about a shady Galactic Grunt and some bomb, so we went to investigate while Barry played around. We caught up with the Grunt with no cardio near Lake Valor and snatched an easy victory. Barry thought Cynthia was our older sister, and then Cynthia gave us the secret potion for the Psyducks at Route 210. The Psyducks were cured and Cynthia caught up with us. You know, she could have done this whole thing herself. She was right there. We then delivered the old charm to Cynthia's grandmother and quickly battled the Galactic Grunt guarding the entrance to the cave. Then, while we were checking the cave's paintings, Blue Spaceman came and challenged us to a fight. Blue Spaceman sent out a Sneasel first and I led with Techno. The Sneasel was faster and hit an Ice Punch first. Techno hit back with a Signal Beam, which was super effective. Blue Spaceman used the Hyper Potion and Techno fired off another Signal Beam, this time taking the health down to red. After tanking another Ice Punch, Techno finished the Sneasel with another Signal Beam. The Golbat came next and hit with an Air Cutter, but Techno healed with Recover. After getting hit with more Air Cutters, Techno finished the job with Thunderbolt. Blue Spaceman sent out his Murkrow last and managed to hit first with a Drill Peck. It wasn't enough to take out Techno, meaning Techno fired off its last Thunderbolt and defeated the Murkrow. And Cynthia came and talked to us again, meaning she could have helped us and delivered the charm to her grandma herself. So we got Surf, but no friend to surf on. I decided to hunt for a Surf Slave, and that's how we ended up capturing Surf Slave, the Goldeen. Now that we can surf, I searched for another team member. We surfed over to Fuego Ironworks and successfully captured a Magmar. He'd be known as Mago. Over at Canalave, we were challenged by our rival yet again. His Staraptor is up first, so I sent out Spuko. Spuko hit first with a Thunderbolt, thankfully one-shotting the bird. Barry sent out his Torterra next, so I switched to the new member, Mago. Mago tanked a bite in the switch-in, and it left the Torterra burned. One Lava Plume later, the Torterra was down to a critical hit. Next was the Floatzel, so I switched to Techno. Techno got hit by an Aqua Jet on the switch-in and in the next turn, but the Thunderbolt from Techno took care of the Floatzel in one hit. Barry sent out his Heracross next and I switched to Sayo. Sayo was hit by a Brick Break, but it didn't do much. Sayo used Wing Attack and the Heracross went down easily. Last was Barry's Rapidash and I switched to Chapo, who had to stare at the horse's ass twice. Not much to say here as Chapo used Revenge for the finish. While preparing for the Canalave gym, Mago evolved into a Magmortar. Steelman wasn't difficult at all with his team as Mago had the type advantage. Mago took care of the Magneton and Steelix with Flamethrower, then I switched to Chapo for the Bastiodon. Chapo barely took any damage from the Stone Edge and the low kick was able to one-shot the Bastiodon. After the gym, we then went to the Iron Island and took care of Team Galactic there with Riley. We went to Registeel's cave and obtained the Metal Coat, meaning Sayo would be able to evolve soon. Before that, Horno grinded and evolved to a Rhydon. Sayo got his turn and evolved into a Scizor right after. We mopped up more plot after this, and felt the explosion of the bomb set off by Team Galactic. We were then requested to investigate Lake Valor. At Lake Valor, we had the chance to battle Commander Spiky Bluehair, but it was pretty short-lived. Spooko and Mago pretty much one-shot his team. The rematch with Commander Redhead wasn't that much trouble as well, as Mago and Horno stomped their way through. We then made our trek north and found ourselves taunted by Barry, just outside of Snowpoint. We challenged leader Twintails shortly after, and this went just like how you'd think it would. I figured Sayo wasn't getting enough screen time, so I decided to go with Sayo for this battle. He pretty much spammed Steel Wings and tore through Twintails' whole team. With rock climb now possible, we acquired the Reaper Cloth right in front of Lake Aquity. Barry's been beaten by Commander Purple Lady, and we found ourselves tasked with infiltrating Team Galactic HQ in Veilstone. But before that, I had to train Horno and evolve him into a Rhyperior, and Dusko as well. He evolved into a Dusknoir. Then we went through the mandatory Galactic HQ bit, where we find the dubious disc needed to evolve Techno. So, Techno finally achieved its final form, a Porygon Z. Did you guys know that Cyrus is only 27 years old? After all that, it was time to face Blue Spaceman for the second time. Blue Spaceman led with a Sneasel, so I sent Techno first. The Sneasel hit first with an Ice Punch, and Techno fired back with a Signal Beam, which was able to take it down in one go. Blue Spaceman sent out his Crobat next, which was able to attack with Poison Fang first, leaving Techno poisoned. Techno's Thunderbolt did a lot of damage, but wasn't able to one-shot the Crobat. After being hit with another Poison Fang, Techno managed to hit a high roll on his Thunderbolt, downing the Crobat. Blue Spaceman would then send out his last Pokemon, his Honchkrow. After using Recover and getting damaged by Drill Peck, the built-up poison damage was proving to be a bit too much for Techno, so I switched to Horno. The Drill Peck on the switch-in practically did nothing, and Horno took out the Honchkrow with a Stone Edge in the next turn. We had to free the Lake Trio, so we battled Commander Spiky Bluehair again. This battle was pretty easy, with Spooko and Mago one-shotting his team. We pressed the button to set the Lake Trio free, then listened to Sharon stroke his own ego. While making our way up Mount Coronet, Looker caught up to us and gave us the Black Flute. He told us to stop Blue Spaceman because what could go wrong? Every 10-year-old child in this game are quite dependable, it seems. Up on the Spear Pillar, we had to battle both Commander Purple Lady and Commander Redhead one last time to progress. Joining us is Barry, who came to help. This battle went on quite slow, but it was divided quite evenly between Mago and Horno. Mago took 3 Pokemon down with flamethrowers, and Horno took care of the rest. Horno also killed Barry's Munchlax by accident. It wasn't intentional, I swear. After beating the 2 commanders, Blue Spaceman activated the red chain and triggered a pretty long cutscene. Dialga and Palkia popped out of Doraemon's pouch, and Giratina appeared, opening a portal to the Distortion World. Blue Spaceman got sucked in, so we went after Blue Spaceman with Cynthia. Then we had to finish the mandatory puzzle over at the Distortion World and experience this extremely boring water ride. Finally, we got up to Blue Spaceman for the big showdown. Blue Spaceman sent out his Houndoom first, so I let Horno. The Houndoom missed his Will-O-Wisp and fell quickly to Horno's Earthquake. Next was Cyrus's Gyarados, so I switched to Spooko. Spooko got hit with a Waterfall on the switch-in, which took Spooko's health down to orange. The Thunderbolt after killed the Gyarados instantly. Blue Spaceman sent out his Honchkrow next, and I switched to Techno. The Night Slash took about half health from Techno, but Techno hit a Thunderbolt the next turn that killed it in one shot. When the Weavile came out, I switched to Sayo, tanking a Fake Out that scored a crit. It didn't do too much, and the Steel Wing that Sayo used the next turn was able to take down the Weavile quite easily. Blue Spaceman sent out his last Pokemon, his Crobat. Switching to Horno was a no-brainer, since he could take whatever the Crobat threw at him. Horno missed his first Stone Edge and was left confused by a Confuse Ray, but he powered through and hit his Stone Edge anyway. As we left Blue Spaceman on his knees, we Master Balled the mandatory legendary encounter, this time naming it Giratina. We were able to go home safely, only to be called a fool by Professor Rowan. Just west of Sunyshore, we caught an Electabuzz, which was named Electo. I picked up the Electorizer near the Valley Windworks and leveled him up until he evolved into an Electivire. The blackout in Sunyshore was finally resolved, and we ran into Fireman, who had us fetch Electric Dude from the lighthouse and challenge him to a battle. Looking back at this battle, I was quite lucky to get away with losing no Pokemon. I used Horno for this battle, and his Earthquake pretty much one-shot all of Electric Dude's team. But what was quite impressive was that the Jolteon and Raichu missed their super effective moves against Horno. I'm pretty sure one of these moves could have taken Horno out. Horno did get hit by 2 Ice Fangs from the Luxray, but it wasn't enough. After defeating the Electivire with 1 Earthquake, we finally got all 8 badges and qualified for the Pokemon League. We got the Waterfall 8 Sham from Jasmine, who was just chilling at the beach, and headed for the league. No one could actually learn Waterfall, so Surf Slave made a last minute comeback. Before we could challenge the league, Barry made one last attempt to beat us in a battle. Barry led Staraptor, so I sent out Spooko first. Spooko scored a Thunderbolt, which killed the Staraptor in one hit. His Torterra was up next and I switched to Mago, who tanked a Crunch on the switch in. One Flamethrower later, the Torterra was down and out. Barry sent out his Floatzel and I switched to Techno. Techno's Thunderbolt was enough to one-shot it as well. His Heracross was next and I didn't want to risk unnecessary damage, so I switched to Spooko. Spooko couldn't be hit with close combat and used a super effective Psychic, and the Heracross went for his Eternal Sleep. Barry's Snorlax was next and I switched for Chapo, who had an easy time with a low kick. Last was Barry's Rapidash, who Horno took care of quite easily as well with an Earthquake. My team are EV trained for the most part, and it was made really easy by this guide called the Cave of Dragonflies, which listed all the rematchable trainers in Sinnoh, complete with their EV yields. If you're doing your own run, I highly recommend that you check out this guide. Anyway, here's my team for the Elite Four. First up was Mago the Magmortar, Electo the Electivire, Spooko the Gengar, Horno the Rhyperior, Dusko the Dusknoir, and finally we have Techno the Porygon Z. As usual, the first battle of the Elite Four with Bugman is quite easy. I sent out Mago and he pretty much swept all of Aaron's team with flamethrowers. The Drapion was a bit tanky, so Mago had to mix it up with a Fire Blast. Next was Ground Lady, and I honestly thought I was going to have a big problem with her. But after I replaced some moves for Techno, it turned out to be quite a breeze. Ground Lady led her Wish Cache, so I led Techno. I used the first turn to set up a Solar Beam while she hit with an Earth Power. The next turn, the Solar Beam hit, and the Wish Cache couldn't take the Sun Power. With Never Melt Ice as Techno's health item, the rest of Ground Lady's team was a breeze. Techno blasted Ice Beams after Ice Beams to one-shot the rest of the Pokemon. Then it was time for the Fiery Man. I have to be honest here, this guy was more trouble than I thought he would be. A lot of it could be because I couldn't encounter any water types, but I suppose he has quite powerful Pokemon at his disposal as well. He led with his Houndoom, so naturally I led with Horno. The Houndoom immediately sets up a Sunny Day, but he was taken out by one Earthquake. Next, Fiery Man sent out his Infernape, so I switched to Spooko, who couldn't be touched by an Earthquake. Spooko used Psychic, and the Infernape went down in one hit. Next, Fiery Man sent out his ace, Magmortar. Now, I couldn't immediately switch for Horno because this Magmortar has Solar Beam, and the sun was still up from the Sunny Day. So, I had to waste some turns until the Sunny Day's effect goes down. I tanked one hit with Spooko while hitting back with the Psychic for one turn, then I sent out my own Magmortar to waste the next two turns. Once the sunlight faded, I immediately switched for Horno and ended it with an Earthquake. The Rapidash and Flareon that followed was no trouble at all, as they couldn't deal enough damage to Horno. Horno ended the fight safely. The worst Elite Four for this run was over, I thought, but Four Eyes here proved me wrong, not allowing me to take a breather. Dusko, equipped with the Spook Plate, went first against Four Eyes' Mr. Mime. Dusko used Shadow Sneak, which is a priority move, and one-shotted the Mr. Mime. The Espeon came out next and it was the same strategy. The first Shadow Sneak couldn't one-shot it, and Dusko was hit by a Shadow Ball in return, leaving him with half health. Four Eyes went for a heal, but it was all for naught. Two Shadow Sneaks later, the Espeon was down. Next was his Bronzong, and the reason I taught Dusko Fire Punch. Dusko outsped the Bronzong and hit first, which nicely took half of the Bronzong's health. It hit back with a Psychic, and right to plan, Dusko was still able to survive. Dusko hit another Fire Punch, taking the Bronzong down. Then his Gallade came out. I had to switch here if I wanted to save Dusko, so I sent out Electo in hopes for him to tank some damage. Electo has decent stats. Of course, RNGesus wasn't with me. The Gallade hit a crit Psycho Cut, and Electo went down in one shot. I sent Spooko out next and fired off a Shadow Ball, so sure it would be a one-shot. Of course it wasn't. The next Psycho Cut took down Spooko. This one was extremely painful. As I lamented my luck, I sent out Dusko and hit a priority Shadow Sneak to end the fight. That was a mess. Spooko was vital in my battle plan against Cynthia, and at this point I was so sure I was going to lose. But no point in resetting here, so I had to try my luck against Cynthia with only 4 Pokemon. We arrived at the champion room, Cynthia's banger of a theme came on, and we started the fight. Her Spiritomb was up first and I opened with Mago. Mago hit first with a Flamethrower, leaving a bit of health left. She hit back with a Shadow Ball, but it didn't do too much. The next Flamethrower took it out. The Milotic was up next, so I switched to Dusko, who tanked a Surf on the switch-in. Dusko used a Shadow Punch, and the Milotic failed a Mirror Coat on the next turn. I really thought that Dusko wouldn't survive the next turn, so I went for a Shadow Sneak to deal some chip damage. But this time, RNGesus came back to bless me with a crit. Desco pulled a miracle out of his ghostly ass and took down the Milotic with a 40 base power move. Now, we're 4-4 with Cynthia. She sent out her Lucario next and I stayed with Dusko. The Lucario hit first with a Shadow Ball, almost killing Dusko. But Dusko hit back with a Brick Break that took the Lucario's health down to orange. I decided to sack Dusko here and he died to a Shadow Ball. Rest well, unexpected hero. I sent out Mago next and took care of the Lucario with a Flamethrower. Cynthia's Garchomp was next, and I didn't want to waste a switch on Techno, so I went on and tried to force a Flamethrower. Surprisingly, Mago went first and dealt a bit of damage, and somehow the Garchomp missed the Dragon Rush. The next turn, Mago went down after firing off one more Flamethrower. So, 2 Pokemon left. Techno came in, but it was outsped by Cynthia's Garchomp. It took down more than half of its health, but the Ice Beam Techno fired back took care of the Garchomp. Her Togekiss was next and all I could do was fire off an Ice Beam. Unfortunately, it couldn't kill it in one go. The Togekiss used an Air Slash and Techno pulled off this miraculous feat of endurance and survived with 5 HP. Techno fired off another Ice Beam as the Togekiss healed, which left the same amount of health. But since Techno was faster, another Ice Beam sealed the Togekiss's fate. Last was Cynthia's Roserade and Techno with his 5 HP. If Techno doesn't kill this Roserade in one go, I had no chance. My only Pokemon left at this point was Horno the Rhyperior, and it wouldn't stand any chance against this Roserade. So, at this point, I was quite torn between healing with a Recover, which doesn't guarantee Techno's survivability, and just going for a desperate Ice Beam, hoping it would take it down in one shot. After a while of just walking around in my room, I figured with the Never Melt Ice, Techno could do it. I put all my hopes in Techno as I pressed Ice Beam and Techno did it. You absolute beauty of a Pokemon. We narrowly escaped with a win, and Cynthia invited us to the Hall of Fame room where our feat would be recorded and written in stone. So, for those of you thinking this challenge would be an absolute breeze, well, it's definitely more than a breeze. It definitely wasn't a walk in the park. But I'm sure others can do it better than I did, since I'm still pretty much a casual. With that, feel free to do your own run of this Trade Evolutions Only challenge, and let me know how it goes.